Hi there, Mr. Mayo here. Today I want to talk to you about one of the best tools you have as a musician. The pencil. The pencil helps you remember what you need to. Otherwise, it's as if the information erased from your memory. Many younger musicians are hesitant to mark up their music. They see it as a sign of weakness, or they want their piece to look brand new. A wise musician once said to me, you can either have a clean performance or a clean piece of music. You can't have both. What they mean by that is you have to make the markings in your music in order to help you remember error corrections, musical choices, and other aspects of musical performance that'll push you to the next level. If you look at the music of most upper-level and professional musicians, they almost always have markings in their music. When it comes to writing in music, generally I'll mark up anything the director says to me and any mistake I make more than once. I just try to make sure I keep it clean. I know what you may be thinking. Why not a pen? Well, a pen is permanent, meaning if you mark something wrong, no longer have an issue with a spot, or want to change something, you can't. That's why I use a pencil. It has an eraser. Here's the most important rule about the pencil. Have one. Anytime you play your instruments, you should always have a pencil. It's impossible to mark up what you need to if you don't have the materials you need to mark it up. Would you believe that? Get it? See what this has led to? You need to create your own system for markings. We're going to use a musical example that I made to show you some of the ways you can mark up your music. Brackets. I bracket measures that I find challenging. Some of the best musicians out there also set levels to their musical chunks they need to work on based on the difficulty. Some of them might use numbers, letters of the alphabet, some people even use colors. For me, I keep it simple. If a section is really challenging, I use a double bracket. If it's somewhat challenging, I just use a single bracket. This tells me I need to put the focus on the double bracketed sections first, and then the single bracketed sections next. After you work on it enough, you can of course erase a bracket if it's a double bracket, or even erase the single bracket if you want to. Personally, I like to keep them on the page, so that way I know those spots that I probably need to run before I do a performance run through. So when I get out a piece of music each day, I'll run through those spots just to make sure that they're solid. Commas. Many musicians and even books use commas to represent breath marks. I would use these to try to tell you where to breathe. When working on solo literature, you want to pick out your breath spots so that way you can incorporate it into your phrasing of the music. If you're looking at breathing in an ensemble piece, it really depends upon the context of the literature, the type of ensemble that you're playing in, and the director's prerogative. In most cases in ensemble literature, you won't breathe on a bar line. Write in the rhythmic counts. If the rhythm is tripping you up, write in the counts to the music. You don't really want to do this for the whole piece because it can really clutter your music up, but doing this for the spots that you find tricky rhythmically will help you work on counting through that section. Mark the subdivisions. Often use lines to indicate the subdivisions for the tricky rhythms. So for instance here, I've marked the quarter notes. I've now marked in the eighth notes with the quarter notes. And now I've marked in the 16th notes. It just helps see where everything lines up. For some people, this might even be more effective than counting because it really shows where everything lies in between. The big thing is it helps you understand where everything lies in relation to the big beats. Especially if you're tapping your foot up and down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, because that relates 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, so you can feel how everything relates. You might want to be careful if you start adding too many subdivisions. It might be better off to stick with either one or two different kinds of lines. And sometimes using different colors for this can help you out, so keep something like a colored pencil handy. Note names. If there's a pitch you consistently miss, write in the note name or the fingering. Do not do this for every note, as you should focus on actually being able to read music. Part of being a musician is being musically literate, and you need to be able to actually read the music. Only write in the note names of one note if it keeps on getting you. Key signature errors. Write in a sharp or flat on a note if it keeps getting you. Like writing in note names, only do this for one note if it keeps on messing you up. Knowing how to play in a particular key is part of music literacy, so you should understand how to be musically literate and actually play each individual key. Tempo and timing choices. I often mark in specific tempos I'm rehearsing chunks at, the tempos that the ensemble plays at, and any fluctuations that are musical choices dealing with tempo. These could be ritordandos, where the tempo slows down slightly, or accelerandos, where tempo progressively gets faster. Other musical interpretations. You can use lines to show phrasing, mark in your own dynamics and articulation markings for solos, and mark in any musical changes a director might make in an ensemble situation. The circle. Circle things that need to grasp your attention. Some of these things may be a note you sometimes play wrong, key changes, tempo markings, dynamics, other things like that. In addition, some people also use highlighters to grasp attention in spots that really need to be paid attention to. Just remember that highlighters are permanent. Write in the scale or arpeggio that's being used. If you know all your scales, this can make your job a lot easier in certain sections. Instead of having to think through each individual note, you can write in the name of the scale or arpeggio. For instance, instead of thinking each individual note in this section of D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, you can just write in D major and the job is done. Also, if it skips a note or morphs into a different scale, you can mark that too. Where not to breathe. In some music situations, you don't want to breathe in a certain spot. You can mark these spots with a DB for don't breathe, or a small x for also don't breathe. If a note needs to be full value, perhaps draw an arrow across the note to show that it needs to be played all the way through the value of the note. How your part fits in. Are you the melody, the harmony, a rhythmic ostinato, the bass line, or some other kind of aspect? Should you be listening to someone else for balance purposes? Mark it in. Fingerings. Do you need to use an alternate fingering or a trill fingering in a passage? If so, mark it down so you can remember. Stickings. For percussionists, the right sticking can make all the difference when playing something challenging. Percussionists should write in the sticking if there is not one written in for a more difficult passage. Also, percussionists can write in percussion techniques, such as for when crossovers are needed on timpani. When a crossover is needed on timpani, I just mark an X. Reference pitch. Are you resting for a while and need a reference pitch to make sure you don't frack a note as a brass player? Maybe it's a reference pitch for tuning change on timpani. Perhaps it's a reference pitch that you need to listen to for tuning purposes. Mark in the people you should listen to for a reference pitch. Intonation aspects. Mark in aspects associated with your intonation. If a note's consistently flat, maybe draw an arrow up to show that you need to raise the pitch. If the note's consistently sharp, maybe draw an arrow down so that way you know to lower the pitch. Also, if there's a person in your section you should listen to for the beats within your sound, mark that in too. Eyeglasses or eyeballs. Do you need to watch the conductor or another performer for a musical decision? If so, draw a pair of glasses or eyeballs to remind you to watch. Are you missing a repeat? You could easily mark where you need to go. You could also draw an arrow. Write in words or grouping of words that help you in performance and keep you motivated. If there's a story that can help you emote the piece, write in something relating to that story. If there are some words that someone has said to you that made you feel good about what you're playing, write it in. It will help keep things more positive. Those are just some of the things that I recommend doing. Create your own system of abbreviations. It's about you understanding it. Remember, keep it neat and clean. Make sure you can easily read it. Hope this practice tip has led you to a better understanding of how to use a pencil. Please subscribe for future videos. Be safe, do work, and go practice.